Good morning and happy Tuesday, September 14th. Okay, today we're going to be continuing with finding volume, but today we're going to really look at using the formula that we worked on yesterday. So, our learning objective today is I can solve problems that require finding volume of a real world object given its length, width, and height. Which remember, we know we need those three dimensions to be able to find volume. Okay, for your agenda, we're going to have our start problem to warm up our brains and kind of have a little bit of refresher about volume. Then you're going to be given a try it problem. And this try it problem is where I want you to try to use what you know about volume and try to solve the problem. All right, and then step 3, I'm going to actually do a little quick mini lesson and give you a picturing of it and a modeling of it and trying to compare those two. And then you're going to go forward and apply what you've learned today as well as bringing the knowledge in from yesterday. All right, you will need your workbooks, so make sure that you either pause this video and go grab it, but you are going to be solving things inside your workbook and it will make it much easier. All right, here we go. For your start problem, I want you to write an equation to find the volume of the prism. So think about what we did yesterday. Think about the length, the width, and the height. And I want you to write the equation with those dimensions that would help us to find the volume of the prism. Now it's time for our try it problem. So before we jump into the problem, we do need to make sense of the problem. Please also turn to your page 37 in your workbook. You are going to find this problem there, and it's a perfect workspace to solve your problem, and then you will put your answers into this ed puzzle. All right, so let's make sense of the problem. Gareth has a rectangular pencil cup on his desk. The cup is 3 inches long, 2 inches wide, and 5 inches high. What is the volume of the pencil cup? All right, what is this problem about? Now for the second read. Gareth has a rectangular pencil cup on his desk. The cup is 3 inches long, 2 inches wide, and 5 inches high. What is the volume of the pencil cup? What are you trying to find out? Now for our third and final read of making sense of the problem. Gareth has a rectangular pencil cup on his desk. The cup is 3 inches long, 2 inches wide, and 5 inches high. What is the volume of the pencil cup? What information is important that you need to help you solve this problem? All right, now that we've made sense of it, I want you to work it out in your workbook on page 37, and you're going to need your strategy, because you're going to compare it to how I solved it. Let's compare strategy. So if we were in class, we would be doing a turning, talking, and showing each other's work, but we're not. So now you guys get to compare it against my work. So here I've solved my problem. I'm going to kind of explain my thinking, because that's what we would do in class. I actually drew a model. I kind of pictured it in my head. I pulled out some important information like the 3 inches long. Ooh, that's my length. I pulled out 2 inches wide. That would be my width. And then I pulled out 5 inches high, because I think of high as how tall something is. So that would be my height. I thought to myself, my formula is length times width times height from yesterday. I plugged in my numbers to my formula, 3 times 2 times 5, and I got 5 times 5, and I got 25 cubic inches. Do you agree with me, or do you disagree with me? And why or why not? Now let's take a look at 2 ways that we could actually solve this problem. So one way is actually using a picture. You can picture the pencil cup as a rectangular prism made up of 1-inch cubes. And here we've used the cubes to build it. And that is making a picture in our heads and thinking to ourselves what that would look like with using 1-inch cubes. Now a model, this looks very similar to the strategy that I used. I drew It is a box, but we have a fancy word in math called a rectangular prism. I drew a rectangular prism, a 3D solid figure shape, and I labeled the dimensions. So very similar to the strategy I used. I labeled my length, I labeled my width, and I labeled my height, that important information. You can actually see in the picture model, these dimensions are still here. They're just used with cubes. So I have 3 cubes, 1, 2, 3 for my length. I have 2 for my width, and I have 5 for my height. This would be your counting your cubes and picturing it. In my model it, I have there, you do not see my cubes, but you do see a picture representation of the rectangular prism. And I have plugged in, or I have my formula, length times width times height. Think to yourself, how are these models alike? All right, let's make some connections and explain our thinking. I want you to take a moment and explain how you can find the volume of a pencil cup using the prism shown, which is our picture it, right? And then I want you to find the volume. Looking at the other strategy we used was the model it, where a rectangular prism was drawn with no unit cubes. Explain how you can use the prism and model it to find the volume of the pencil cup. Now it's time to show me what you know. I'm going to read each of the problems and I want you to solve them. You can turn to page 40 in your workbook. You can actually do the work inside your workbook to make sure that you are getting the correct answer, and then you will enter your answers into this slide. All right, here's your problem. Well, here's your first problem to apply what you have learned yesterday and today and about volume. What is the volume of a rectangular jewelry box with a length of 12 centimeters, a width of 7 centimeters, and a height of 5 centimeters? Show your work in your workbook and then enter your answer here. Your second problem that I want you to solve: how much space is taken up by a book that is 12 inches long, 10 inches wide, and 1 inch tall? Show your work on page 40 for problem 8, and then solve it in your workbook and enter your answer. For your next problem, your practice problem to apply what you know, Ellen's shed is 10 feet long, 6 feet wide, and 8 feet tall. What is the volume of the shed? If you would like to solve your problem in your workbook, you can turn to page 42, solve your work in your workbook, and then enter your answer here. For your next problem is, the base of a rectangular prism has a length of 4 centimeters and has a width of 2 centimeters. The height of the prism is 3 centimeters. What is the volume of the prism? You can also do this work inside your workbook on page 42. You will see this problem there as well. Show your work in your workbook and then enter your answer here.